I woke up this morning and I saw that Pope Francis II had passed away. I wasn't planning on doing a video today, but I figured I would take a couple minutes and talk a little bit about Pope Francis II because his papacy has actually been pretty meaningful to me, and I want to explain why. If you know me, you know I'm a very proud Italian. I was born into an Italian family in the Southern tradition, and of course Roman Catholicism was a very big part of that tradition. And I was baptized, I went through communion, I went through the confirmation process. I've participated in Roman Catholic rituals, acts of contrition. I've done the confessional. I've participated in a lot of those rituals, and many of those rituals I really believe are very beautiful and very meaningful rituals. But it was during my time going through the confirmation process that I realized that, you know what, Roman Catholicism isn't really for me. And I kind of felt bad going through the confirmation process, and being confirmed a Roman Catholic when really I knew in my heart that it wasn't true. And the reason why it wasn't true is because all around me I had people who were pushing, while I was getting my confirmation, while I was being confirmed in the church, pushing, that I am being confirmed into the one true faith, into the one true church, into the one true way of serving God and accepting and embracing God's miracle of life, right? And I was having a hard time with that. I studied history, and I was a student of other cultures, and I had met many people, and since then in my travels I've met many people and read about many people who were really good and decent people who were outside of the faith. So those people did so many great things, and yet they weren't part of the one true faith. So for years I went on kind of a spiritual journey. I looked into other religious beliefs and other faiths, and everywhere I turned, well, just about everywhere, not everywhere, but just about everywhere I turned, it was this is the one true faith, this is the one true, this is the one true. It was the dogma. It was the dogma that turned me off. The dogma. And everywhere I looked as a Roman Catholic, I saw people pushing the dogma. This is the one true faith. You have to accept the one true faith. You have to reject everything that's not in the one. It's the dogma. And I learned to reject dogma, whether it was religious dogma, spiritual dogma, political dogma, ideological, it doesn't matter. Right? I decided to embrace science. I started to embrace research, which is decidedly non-dogmatic. I rejected the dogma. So for years, the examples that I had were those pushing the dogma. And then Pope Francis II came along. And he came along, and instead of sitting on this regal throne, he sat on a wooden stool. And instead of him pushing the dogma of the faith, he promoted the values of the faith. And many of those values, I'm not a Roman Catholic, I've abandoned the church, but I didn't abandon those values. Those values are still very important to me. The idea of serving God through doing good works and good things for others. The idea that we are all equal in the eyes of God. And that it is our responsibility, those who have, having a responsibility to those who don't have. To those who have a position and have status, to care for and look out for those who have no position, who have no status. For those who have not been marginalized, to protect and defend those who have. Those with power, using that power to advance the powerless. These are the values of the Roman Catholic Church that I was raised with. That's there in the canon, but gets ignored when the emphasis is on the one true faith. And Francis II was the very first high Catholic official in my lifetime who emphasized the values over the dogma. For Pope Francis II, the first law of God was that we love each other, and everything else was negotiated. But that one fact couldn't be negotiated. And it didn't really matter if you were Roman Catholic. It didn't matter if you were gay or straight. It just mattered that you were a human being. And therefore, you were to be loved as our neighbor. That's the first rule. And that was the first rule for Francis. Now, I didn't always agree with Francis, and I didn't, there are a lot of Roman Catholic rules and ideas and values that I don't embrace, and I reject, and in fact, in many cases, I fight against. But that he was emphasizing the values over the dogma is what I took away from his papacy. And who knows, maybe had he been Pope when I was going through my confirmation process, hey, maybe I'd still refer to myself and still think of myself as a Roman Catholic. But I hope moving forward, now the Roman Catholic Church is going to go through its centuries-old process of choosing another pope. We can't assume that there won't be any politics involved. We can't assume that there won't be people who are pursuing their own earthly, mundane ends in this conclave. It is my hope that whoever rises to that position following Francis sits on that humble stool rather than sits on the throne and embraces the values that are supposed to embody the faith of Roman Catholicism over the dogma of Roman Catholicism. And I really hope that whoever the next pope is, I can look at as an ally in doing battle with dogma.